While negotiations on police reform seem to have stalled in Washington, D.C., several states are taking matters into their own hands and launching police accountability measures of their own. At the same time, there's alarming news about the persistence of police violence and in-custody deaths. New research from the University of Washington, published in the English medical journal The Lancet, says that more than half of police killings are mislabeled. And in Florida, a woman is bringing a wrongful death lawsuit after her baby died after she gave birth alone in a county jail cell. Back with me to discuss all of this is veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor, Paul Henderson. All right, Paul, Governor Newsom, your governor in California, has signed new policing reform legislation that really only gets California up to speed with most other states. It sets up a decertification system for police who act criminally or with bias and bans certain restraint holds. It also bans membership in police gangs, something that's been a problem within the LA Sheriff's Department. Is this effective legislation, or does California need to come harder?
Well, I would say both. It is effective legislation, and we still need to continue coming harder. Part of the reason for that at a state level is, there's still a lot of gaps in both defining what reforms for law enforcement should be and what accountability for law enforcement should be. But the fact that we're having this conversation coming off of the failed and stalled attempts now with the George Floyd bill, I think is really relevant, but it shines the light on what's possible in terms of how we move this conversation forward. We can't just wait at the federal government, and we can have meaningful legislation like we see here in California at the state level, but we don't have to wait for that as well, because we can have these same conversations at a local level as well. It's interesting to me when we were talking about, and you were introducing the story, talking about the revelation from the article today, talking about that over half of the information that's being disseminated, both about reform and about accountability, is mislabeled and isn't collected. And that, to me, shines the light on exactly what this issue is in terms of not just the killing, but for reform and accountability, which is all around data. We can't fix what we don't talk about, and we can't talk about what we don't know. So the first start of that analysis comes with the collection of data. And that's the first step. We have to collect data, and we have to do it in a way that is reflective of best practices, meaning we can't rely on the agencies to collect their own data about themselves. That's how we got to the wide disparity in that article in the first place, talking about the wide disparity and the inaccuracy of the agencies monitoring themselves. That data collection step needs to take place or be mandated by outside agencies and or legislators at a local, state, and federal level to make sure that the information is available that they collect. And I would say, to reflect best practices, that needs to focus on race specifically. Collect data about race, because the race disparities that are embedded into law enforcement and policing can't be revealed until at least we can accurately measure it and then move on to the next steps. And those next steps, obviously, are after you've collected data to make it transparent, publish it. And then the third step for data is to analyze that data and talk about both the trends and the results. And then we can talk about what the solutions are and how they need to take place in all of those jurisdictions. And I'll just tell you what the answer is effective policy, training, and then the last step is accountability to make sure that all of that stuff is taking place in the way that we've asked for it and demanded for it to take place. There was a lot to unpack, Yodit. Sorry about that. But there's so much there with that first string of data being reported as inaccurate, which we knew, but I want to talk about the solution.
Paul, this is why we have you on. You are the expert, so please never apologize. But let's talk about Maryland, though. The Maryland law that seems more far-reaching. It allows public access to police disciplinary records and putting prosecution of police killings in the hands of the state attorney general's department. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's an important first step as well in that jurisdiction, primarily because it's not just one agency in one city that has the solution, right? And so what you end up with, if you're just only looking at local solutions, is some cities have better practices than others. And that's not really fair, that you can't determine whether or not there's going to be either reform and or accountability as you're driving along, transitioning from county to county, city to city. Having these solutions embedded at a state level makes a difference, and having leadership at the national level makes a difference. And I believe that the solution, and this is why I'm encouraged by all of these stories, is that we're seeing piecemeal solutions coming up at all three of those levels. My point is that all of them need to keep coming together so that we continue to see solutions working collaboratively so that we get a national model that's enforced at a state level and executed at a local level so that anywhere and everywhere you go, you start to see these solutions. And the other thing that I just want to mention, because you talked about it when we first started talking about these stories, is that we don't want to just focus on one singular agency. We can't just talk about the police and not consider that we still have to fix sheriffs and deputies and folks that are in custody. That's law enforcement as well. There's so many spectrums of law enforcement. They all can do for reform, and they all need to be accountable to the communities in which they're supposed to serve, specifically disenfranchised communities, because of the race disparities that have been proven through statistics. In spite of the bad data that we were talking about, it's already been proven, and we already know that that exists.
All right, turning now to a very, very disturbing story from today's New York Times. Paul, more than half of police killings are mislabeled by medical examiners, and that's according to a University of Washington study published in the Lancet. The study suggests a level of collusion between police and medical examiners. Surprising?
It's not surprising at all. And again, it goes back to what we were just talking about with the data. As long as the agencies responsible or involved in the killings are doing their own reporting, I think this is to be expected. I mean, it's not a surprise to me that those agencies have misreported more than half of their data. Again, it calls for us to start by forcing that data to be collected in a way that we demand as voters, as we demand of community citizens, and as we demand of our leaders to make that data collectible and transparent and define what that data is. And it can be done through third parties. Obviously, best practices are if you have civilian oversight of those law enforcement agencies, but all of that can be baked into even statewide or local legislation so that those agencies have to do mandatory reporting, and the standards are independently determined as to what qualifies for that reporting. That's why we have the disparities. But again, now that we know what the answers can be, we know how to advocate and work towards those answers to make sure that we are not having the same conversation 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
All right, Paul Henderson, veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor. As always, thank you so very much for spending your Friday night with me.